Welcome to the Nate KG podcast, a show dedicated to exploring the nuances of jump rope, where I talk with jumpers of all skill levels, backgrounds, and fitness goals. Today, we are going to hear from LaVecchia, a competitive jumper and world champion many times over. If you haven't already checked out LJ, you should really go find him on Instagram, like literally right now, because he's amazing. At LJLAVECCHIA. We talk about a lot of different subjects, including how to approach the sport differently by adjusting the competition format, how LJ has broken bones by doing simple skills, and the mindset it takes to become a world champion in the sport of jump rope, and obviously a bunch more on top of that. All of the show notes for this episode can be found over at natekg.com. And now, please enjoy this conversation with LJ LaVecchia. LJ, welcome to the show, man. How are you doing?
Good, Nate. How are you, man?
Super good. This is going to be really fun. It's always great having world champions on. And I know we've hung out in the past before, but I think it's probably the first time we've ever had like an actual sit-down conversation, I feel like. So
yeah, I think so. I mean, other than like conversations while we're jumping or like in between sets or whatever, but yeah, I think this is probably the first time we've really sat down, which I'm super excited about. So
yeah, dude, let's kind of get things kicked off with talking about where you're from and how you first picked up a jump rope.
Yeah, so I'm from Littleton, Colorado, and I think the beginning of my jump rope story is pretty similar to a lot of jumpers around the world. As far as my elementary school had a team, kind of like a club competitive team. They're called the Jumping Eagles. And actually my best friend was on the jump rope team. And I remember we did jump rope for heart in gym class. And he was really good. And we were those best friends. It's Matt Vanager. I don't know. Some people listening might know who that is. Mm-hmm. We jumped together for years and years. But we were the type of best friends who were best friends, but also super competitive. So even in first grade, when he was better than me at jump rope, I was like, oh, no. And so I was like, I can't be. So I joined the team, and then I had a really good core group of jumpers who were around the same age as me. So I just fell in love with the sport. It was super easy to fall in love with, obviously. And then just started competing locally and doing well there, and then regionally, and then nationally and internationally, and so on and so forth. But yeah, from Littleton, Colorado, jumped on the Jumping Eagles, and just kind of club team to competitive team to professional eventually.
What are some of your top accolades and some of your top most proud accolades, even if they weren't number one? I'm wondering if there's some in addition to your championship wins that you like as well.
Sure. So I assume we're going to be talking about competition right now first. So
let's do it.
That almost sounded bad. I didn't mean there's so many. There's a lot of different moments in jump rope that I'm proud of. So it's kind of hard to like pick out one. I'm proud for different reasons. But I have 28 grand world titles and 22 grand national titles. And I think my two favorites, if I were to like narrow them down to two competitive event like moments, would probably be in 2016, my single rope freestyle that I did in Portugal for Grands. It was the third year in a row that I won the Grand National or Grand World title for individual freestyle. And that year was also the year that my mom was diagnosed with breast cancer. So I'd kind of committed. Well, I was jumping for her the whole season. So I wore pink shoes that year. Like in the sport of jump rope, I was always kind of known growing up for wearing yellow shoes. Like always yellow shoes, always yellow shoes. And so that year I was like, I'm going to switch to like some neon pink breast cancer awareness shoes. And so I jumped for her. And it was just a culmination of, that was really the first time I ever hit a clean single routine, minus like when I was like young.
Right.
But that was the first time I ever hit a clean singles routine at competition. It happened to be the third year in a row that I won. It was the year I was jumping for my mom. It was just kind of like everything came together and was like a really nice moment. And on top of it, Luke Boone, an amazing, amazing jumper, also had a flawless routine right before I went out. So like the pressure was on. It was really close in the end. It just made for a really exciting event. And so I would say that was one of my my favorite and most like proud moments.
That's interesting because like I remember always seeing you have those bright shoes, and I noticed the change that year when you were wearing pink, and I didn't realize that that was the backstory to it. I honestly thought that you were just sick of yellow and you were on something that was a different shade of neon,
We're going pink.
Yeah.
No, yeah. It's funny because that did come up quite a few times. A lot of people would ask me or didn't ask me, and later were like, "Oh, I had no idea." When I tell that story, like I had no idea that's what it was. Just kind of like what you were saying. So yeah, that's actually the story behind that.
Man,
that change.
Sounds like a very tough year as well.
Yeah,
to,
it was tough.
to do
I mean,
all that
obviously
together.
more tough for my mom, but
Yeah.
but yeah, it was tough. And she's doing really well right
Good.
now. So
Okay.
and that was obviously 4 years ago. So but yeah, it was a hard one. But sometimes those things kind of help you center and focus and really like kind of and getting in the gym is a really good way to kind of take your mind off some of the stressors of the real world. So that year I was definitely kind of using the gym in that sort of way. So
Yeah, let's kind of dig into the training aspect, because whenever I'm talking to a world champion, I'm very curious what steps were taken or what you did in training to get you to that point. And obviously you're talking about with that year specifically, it was definitely more useful to be in the gym, but kind of pulling back to the wider view, or wider or narrow, either way you want to go. I'm curious, what would you say has contributed the most to your success as a jumper?
um I mean, for me, I honestly think it's one, just being in love with the sport. You know, I don't think anybody's going to, and maybe this isn't true on like on every level, but it's very hard for an athlete to find success in a sport, in my opinion, if they don't love that sport or didn't love that sport at one point, just because like
And we're talking about
the
like
amount of
success
time.
being literally top in the world.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Which is a very
Yeah.
specific type of success. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Success is measured in all sorts of ways. So, like being a world champion, I think you just have to really love the sport or have loved it at some point to dedicate that much time to it. So that's how I found success early on. Was literally just loving the sport and almost having an addiction to it, in a sense, because I would pick up a rope all the time. So I would be if I wasn't jumping rope, I was trying new flips, or I was on the trampoline, or whatever it might be. But I was jumping rope, or trying new tricks and skills with my buddies from jump rope all the time, all day long. So I'd say that's kind of how it manifested early on, and then as I progressed, kind of, and I've always had a pretty strong sense of like a competitive edge. And so then as I progress, I just like the desire to want to always keep trying new stuff and keep getting better. And that was the thing for me for a long time too, is even though I was super competitive, it was always like competitive to do new innovating things. It wasn't always necessarily winning. Of course, like yes, I wanted that too. But I remember, and that's one thing that's so beautiful about jump rope is you can literally create brand new skills. Like once you get to that level, and even not at that level, but there's so much room for creativity that anybody in the sport can invent something that hasn't been done before. And so that was also really nice for me. And it was just like being able to show up to competition and try to do things people hadn't done before, and kind of trying to develop that clout or that kind of like reputation for being one of the jumpers who's pushing the sport and doing new things, and one of the jumpers that people wanted to watch was kind of
I totally feel you on that. And I feel like that idea of being creative, I remember a long time ago, Jeremy Lindstrom had come to my first team and trained us and worked with us, and we were talking about a skill, and I floated this idea past him of like a push up and then a mic double up from it. And at the time, like I couldn't do that. I was like a tiny little kid. Like I was just, a Gumby all over the place. And Jeremy, we talked about it a little bit, and then fast forward, I think probably a year or something, I'm at a workshop in LA, and then you were there.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think I remember this story.
Yeah, exactly. And then Jeremy was like, he was just saying, hey, we were talking about that skill and how people, and like he went to camp and shared it, and it was really cool. And then he was like, oh, like And then he introduced me to you, and I think Blake was there, and like
Yep.
Sam.
Yep.
And I remember standing there, and I was like, I don't even know what to do right now. Like I literally just froze.
Yeah.
But I know what you're saying about that feeling of being driven by creating something new and doing something interesting, in terms of, because that passion clearly shows with all of your skills and has for a very, very long time. With the actual time investment, I'm curious, how many hours were you jumping to learn these skills? What were you structuring your training sessions in a very specific way? Were you kind of loose about it? What did that look like?
Yeah, so when I was younger, the Eagles would practice twice a week during most of the year. Like when we got towards competition season, it would be 5 days a week in the morning. But the rest of the year, because I mean jump rope doesn't have seasons, the rest of the year we would do twice a week, and it'd be like 2.5 hours. And so when I was young, I just kind of stuck to that, other than just jumping for fun at home. And then as I got to like middle school, high school, I would jump at home for a couple hours, or at least an hour a day on my own, whether it be a workout or just trying to make up new skills. And then that slowly progressed to when I eventually moved to Seattle and jumped with Hot Dog USA, and which was an amazing opportunity and situation. And then having a gym there that I had access to 24/7, and that was when I was in my college years and really focusing on being competitive and being the best I could be. I would get in the gym and probably train 3 hours a day. And that was all year round. And so then when it came to competition time, it'd be even more. And that was on top of being in the gym to coach. So I would also coach for a couple hours. It depends
That's a
on the year,
lot.
but yeah.
That is a lot.
So it was a lot of jump rope. It was a lot of jump rope. Of course, I cut back on the coaching a little bit once I got into my major and once college got a little bid more rigorous and everything. But yeah, especially around competition time, I would be in the gym pretty much all day. So
What did you study in college?
I studied chemical engineering.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
I really want to dig into this for a second, because I find that obviously there's different types of engineering, but I find that folks with an engineering mindset tend to match really well with jump rope.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on that?
I've noticed that too. And I've thought a lot about it, and I think part of what it is just like, in my opinion, the sport of jump rope is a pretty intellectual sport, as far as like it takes a lot. Maybe not like
What you're saying is, if you're
consciously
jump roping,
and-
you're a smart person, so pat yourself on the back.
Exactly. And I think it's kind of a symbiotic, in a sense, relationship, because jump rope, consciously or subconsciously, so much is going on with your body. So it takes some sort of intellect to try to like be able to control and understand everything that's going on. And I think that enhances, like, I'm a big proponent of like, if your body's healthy, your mind's healthy, your mind's healthy, your body's healthy, kind of like that kind of stuff. I mean, to an extent, like I've always tried to be active in both. And so I think the more you do with like, especially a stimulating sport like jump rope, where you can be so creative, and to learn a trick, it takes so much more than just like being physically fit. You actually have to like be able to break down a trick, or be able to learn a trick from somebody, or be able to understand like why the rope goes a certain direction, why the rope rotates more if you turn with one, or like, why is it swinging off axis, blah blah blah. And whether you understand, you break that down, you take the time to break it down and actually understand it, or your body just learns through repetition what's going on and how to understand it itself, that you're still building like intellect. So I think that's why I think jump rope attracts that type of personality and maybe builds on it too.
I feel like jump rope, despite all of its front-facing creativity, is actually a very structured and systematic sport.
Oh, for sure.
It's just that people who become masters like yourself have a very thorough understanding of every single variable that exists and can play around with it and tweak it,
Right. And I think that only comes through repetition.
Mm-hmm.
That only comes through trying it over and over and over and over again. So
that makes sense. I feel like there's also, like, in terms of the brain activated piece of things, I feel like there's a lot of visualization and like abstraction that happens. Like as like I feel like there's you visualizing what you're about to do, but then even in the middle of doing whatever combo you have together, and obviously the harder the combo is, the more difficult this gets, where you're focused on what you're doing, but you're also very, very subconsciously kind of visualizing what's coming next, and what's about to happen, you know?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, without a doubt. Jump rope, there's so much stuff happening at one time, and so many things about to happen.
Yeah.
Your mind has to be working extremely fast, especially like, I mean, think about like double dutch 5-person. You have 5 people trying to work together. You're worrying about what you're doing. You're worrying about what 4 other people are doing. You're worrying about what's coming next. You're worrying about the music if you decide to choreograph it. You're worrying about like it's a lot, like, and ultimately you trust your teammates, but you still have to be aware of what's going on and what they're doing and how, I mean, what's affecting them during an event, whether it be like pressure or like climate or like whatever it might be. Like, you have a lot going on and there's a lot to focus on. And I think just like that type of our sport takes a certain level of intelligence to really, really be good at.
And like you said, repetition is part of what builds that as well.
For sure. Absolutely. Without a doubt.
I feel like it makes people smarter too. I feel like people who jump rope, I just see this trend of like the best of the best across the board typically are very smart people, are people who are in their career working on very interesting and complex job roles or problems, right? And I'm kind of curious, like, what do you think? I mean, maybe there's not an answer to this, but I feel like, do you think the chicken or the egg, right? Is someone intelligent and they move into jump rope, or do you think jump rope can take someone and make them smarter, or both or neither? What are your thoughts?
That's a good question. My initial thought on that is that, and I'm just going to use my personal experience, is I was always kind of a mathematic person, like a mathematic, whatever. I was always into mathematics, like my whole life. But definitely I would say from elementary school forward, and just like as I aged and the more I jump roped, the smarter I got. Like, I wasn't the best student in elementary school by any means. In middle school, I was like getting better. Like, I was like, oh, I like math, I'm only going to focus on that. But then like started to develop other things, started to get good grades. But then high school came along, and then it was like I like stuck to like a 4.0 and everything. So like I would honestly say that like just like how I progressed, like not being a very academically inclined kid when I was younger, and then kind of falling into that mold, I guess, or fitting that mold, I would say jump rope probably had a lot to do with that. So, and I don't know for sure, but that's kind of, I kind of feel that way.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And I think that, yeah, I mean, obviously that was that's like a really tough question to start off with.
Yeah.
I'm just going to lob that one
just
out there.
break down the
the intellect
correlation
of jump
between jump rope and
No, that makes a lot of sense. I want to go back to your singles freestyle real quick.
Sure. Oh yeah, that's how we started.
Yeah.
Huh?
How much did you practice that? What was the process? Like, really walk me through how many reps, how, like, because a lot of people, like, there's just different methods they use to create routines. Some are very structured. Do this month of the year, do this month of the year, and some people are random up until the day of competition. Like, what was your process to create the world champion routine?
And I've kind of done different processes throughout like my jump rope career, as you could say. But I think the one that kind of worked for me towards the end was I would make sure first developing the routine would just kind of be like, it's a creative process. So kind of just sitting there and doing hours of trying to come up with new skills, doing hours of different combinations, different variations of combinations, training different stuff, cross training. For me, especially as I got older, cross training was a big thing.
What type of cross training?
I would do a lot. So I would weightlift, I would run, in high school, I did a lot of other sports, which kind of naturally gave me the cross training without having to go to gym to like purposely focus on it. So I would do in high school. I played a little bit of football. I ran track. I ran cross country. I dove, and I played a little bit of ultimate frisbee too. All that activity kind of just kept me cross trained,
Yeah.
so to say.
You
But
were
after
basically a super athlete.
no,
You're all over
I
the
played.
place.
I didn't say I succeeded. No, I'm just kidding.
But did you also do obstacle course racing?
I did a little bit of that after high school.
Okay.
Yeah. So I did like some Tough Mudders, Rugged Maniacs. Like,
So
is
I
that
know
what you're
we're
kind of...
I know we're talking about your routine, but I'm gonna go ahead and just take us off the beaten path here for a second.
Sure.
You are all over the place in a good way with a lot of different activities and sports, and you're like, it's always something new. I feel like at some point we had a conversation about you also getting like your skydiving license too. Like,
Yeah.
so what? I mean, you're telling me as a kid you get in a jump rope because you're competitive and you want to beat your friend in a good way, and then like, yeah, all throughout your life you're just jumping into the next thing. Where does that come from? You're just naturally, it's just like, let's go, let's try this.
Well, I think so. Yeah. And that was something that definitely developed later on because as a young jump roper, like elementary school and middle school, I didn't do anything but jump. Well, okay, when I was younger, before jump rope, I did taekwondo. But
But before that, I did this thing.
And that's a funny fact, actually, most people don't know about me, is I was a junior black belt for that. So I spent a lot of time doing that.
Dude, so
but then
you were like, from the
switched over.
get-go, you were building up body
Yeah, I guess
awareness
so.
and strength and like making it happen.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. But anyway, so then I switched to jump rope and I just focused on jump rope for a long time. And I was the young athlete who was like would be frustrated if somebody missed jump rope practice for like another sport or something. I was like, why is everybody's dedication to jump rope not like 100%? And I wasn't like annoying. I was probably annoying. I was definitely annoying. No, I'm just kidding. But then once I got to high school, that changed. I was like, you know what? I think I want to try like something else as long as, because like by then jump rope obviously was my priority. And I was like, I will do other high school sports, but I'll be clear with like the coaches, like jump rope is
Do not
like,
get my way.
number one. Like, yeah, like I'm not missing jump rope practice for any other sport. I'm not missing a jump rope opportunity, like a travel opportunity for any other sport, like all those things. So for a while it was just jump rope, but then once it got into high school, it switched over to other stuff. And that's kind of when I developed that sense of wanting to try everything. And wanting to try to like get good at everything and just like the go mentality, I guess you could say. And I mean, like a body in motion stays in motion. Like I know it's a physics thing, but like
it's real. Yeah.
it's true. It's true for like just life too. And honestly, like I felt that way a little bit with COVID. Like there's been parts of COVID where like I haven't been able to stay in motion, quote unquote. And
Dude, tell me
it's
about
so
it.
much harder to get back into motion, or like trying to get back into shape is so much harder than staying in shape.
Dude,
So it's one of those things where
100%. Literally,
Yeah.
you could not have said the perfect phrase. That's like, yeah, going outside and trying to get a workout is just, it's challenging. It's very challenging.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. That makes sense.
without a
Let's go back to your
Go
singles
back.
freestyle
We'll
now.
come back
Now
to
that we
skydiving. No, I'm just kidding.
now that we've covered that. This is good. This is exactly what I was hoping for. Is this kind of a conversation where it's all over the place, right?
Right.
But so you're training 3 hours a day working on stuff. Your process, you're saying so far, it starts with you putting in hours and hours and hours testing new skills. Are you testing brand new skills, or is that also like different ways of putting things together in combinations? How does that look?
So first it starts with skills. Usually around, well, I mean, I feel like as jump ropers, we're always trying new skills. But around like January, February timeframe, I usually try to hone in on like what new skills I want to use for competition that year. And I take some time just like developing them, seeing which ones would fit well together, and then kind of messing around with that for a month or like maybe 2 months. And then I start working on sequences. So I take some of those skills, take some of the skills I've made up in the past, take some of my favorite skills and try to put those together in like an aesthetic way. So I try to put those together so they flow well, so they look good, so they could be judged well. Things that I like, things I think other jumpers will like. And then I develop sequences, and then I train sequences for probably like a month. So I'll have my multiple sequence, and I'll try that. several times of practice, and then I'll try a power sequence several times of practice and a rope manipulation sequence. And then I get to the point where I try to make sure I hit each sequence a couple times without a miss before I leave practice. Um, and then I usually move to putting together my routine in halves. So I try to do like throw a couple sequences together, usually 2 sequences, because I'm more of a block. Well, that changes year to year. I take that back. I was gonna say sometimes I do like a sequence of multiples to sequence of power to sequence of row manipulation to sequence of or something like that. Just structuring it a little bit more, a little easier for people to follow. But that's changed from year to year as well. But so then I'll work on each half, and I'll try to like say, okay, so this practice I'm gonna run the first half like a few times, and then in the beginning of practice, and then I'll run the second half a few times, or I'll alternate between them. And then as we get closer to competition season, I eventually get to the point where I'm just trying to run my whole routine. And usually, and this is something that I really adapted later on, I actually would get to the point where I'd warm up really well. I'd kind of run my sequences to know like where I'm having trouble spots for that day. And then I would run my routine once a practice. So once a day. And then I would take note of where I missed during that routine, and I would run that sequence after I ran my routine until I got it perfect. And so I wouldn't really kill the routine over and over again, the routine itself, other than, doing it at least once a day. But I wouldn't beat the routine to death. One, they're really hard.
Yeah.
I would
was
actually
gonna say.
argue that single rope freestyle, if done properly, is the hardest event. Not just like strictly physically speaking. And that's coming from somebody who loves triple unders in 3 minutes as well. But I would say physically taxing single rope freestyle can be the hardest because you're going 100% all in from start to finish. So for 1 minute and 15 seconds, you're doing the hardest skills you can do and trying to make them look good and do them with a smile on your face, nonetheless, for 1 minute and 15 seconds with no break. So that's why, I would run it once and then I just kind of go over the things that I missed afterwards, and usually do that right up until competition.
And when you're saying go over the things you missed, you're looking at those parts of the routine that you're missing, and do you then drill that portion a lot?
Yeah,
Gotcha.
exactly. So if I messed up on my rope manipulation, I would do the whole rope manipulation section until I got it clean afterwards. Even if I missed just on a specific jump, sometimes I would do the sequence and I'd still have trouble on that same jump every time. So then I was like, okay, let's break it down. Let's do this skill or just this skill and the 2 skills surrounding it a few times until we see where the problem's at, and then let's address that problem and move past it. But yeah, usually I try to start with the sequence.
Do you find that the other jumpers that are throwing down the hardest routines and who are also world champions, because obviously you're very deep in that network, do you find that they train similarly? Do you not know? Do they have different methods?
I know the ones I train with train pretty similarly. And that's sometimes just because we're in the same gym and we kind of take after each other a little bit once in a while, but I know, I'm pretty sure Luke just runs his routine infinite times from morning to night until world. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not sure if that's true. But I know there's some. I also think it depends how you structure your routine and what type of routine you want to have. Luke is one of those jumpers who, when he goes out on the floor, 95% of the time it's going to be clean, and so he structures his routine differently. He structures his routine to be able to run it over and over again. And he trains so that he's physically fit enough to be able to run it over and over again, so, and I think Tori's very similar. And I know that because when Tori and I did a pairs a while back, we just have a little bit of a different training or how we put together routines, which made it really fun. But yeah, and she definitely likes to run them more run them a lot more than just once practice, which when it comes to other routines and other events, I actually like to do that as well. I just think single rope can be very taxing. And also, I have a different mentality towards single rope than a lot of other people. I usually am just like, all right, let's try to put everything we can, and hopefully
It
I'm
works
ready
out.
to hit it on competition day.
That's
um,
that's wild. So
yeah,
when you,
which actually I had a long conversation. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to
no, you're
interrupt
good.
you.
You're good.
But
Go ahead.
there was one time Sean Hamilton and I we were in Shanghai, and it was towards the very beginning of the year. But I had my routine ready, and the Shanghai team was like, "Oh, can you guys?" It was me, Sean, and Nick, and they're like, "Can you guys perform your routines for us?" And both Nick and I were like, "Oh, here we go." It was like the fall. And so we had like 6-8 months before competition. So obviously it wasn't ready. And they knew that. So they were just like, we just want to see something. Just do a little show.
Yeah.
And so like I did my routine, and Sean came up to me after, and this was before I had ever won a single rope title. And he kind of came up to me and was afterwards, because I did the whole multiples to power clean. And then I was trying some rope manipulation that obviously wasn't ready yet, but I missed a lot during that part. And he's like, LJ, you had just won worlds with that routine until like in the first half. And then those tricks you have there are never going to be consistent. You should just lighten up on them a little bit. They're still super impressive, and just win for once. And I was like,
he's like, stop doing the hardest thing and just do like the 99% instead of the 100.
Right. And it's tempting to listen to Sean, because Sean's like one of the wisest jump rope people ever in the sport. And I've been told that so many times throughout my career, just because like, especially as like a younger older athlete, if that makes sense, like a younger, like
Gotcha. Yeah.
good top athlete.
One of the newer-ish generations or middle generation.
Yeah. Like right around that age where like people were starting to pay attention, and I was doing well, but like I was just trying to throw things that were too hard for me at the time, or that I just didn't have consistent. A lot of people told me that. They're like, just dial it back, just do it clean, just like try to win. And I was like, I'm trying to win. But I'm like, no, I don't want to, because like at the same time,
the strategy piece of things.
Well, not only that, I developed like that kind of style, and I developed a name for myself because of the things I would try at competition, and because of the tricks I would come to competition with. And that's why like I traveled so much as a young jumper. That's why I was doing workshops at I taught my first camp at like the age of 14, and I like was doing workshops like regularly at 15 and stuff, like traveling all the time. And so I think that kind of gave me a certain amount of success, or like I realized success because of that in the sport. Maybe not titles right away, but and like physical accolades, but like a lot of opportunities and recognition I did get. So I kind of just stuck with that. And then so back to the story, sorry. So that was the first year I actually did win a single rope title. And Sean came up to me afterwards, and he kind of was like, so you take my advice? Like, I think he thought that I did make it easier because I happened to hit it pretty clean. He's like, so you take my advice and change those? I was like, nope, I just practiced them harder. And I was like kind of smug about it, because like he kind of was like trying. It was a fun little situation, but it was one of those where finally it kind of paid off, and I was like, yes.
That's funny, man. Your process kind of reminds me, it really reminds me a lot of Lucas, and kind of his process. I think a lot of, I hadn't watched too many of your early jump rope videos, right? Because obviously once I came to know about you, you were...
So we didn't have video back then? No, I'm just kidding. We didn't have like social media as much.
Yeah,
so.
no, I feel like there's like some kind of either flight crew, or like maybe on like your YouTube channel or something, or someone's, where there's like a little LJ before you got crazy tall, and then you're just like being pitched and doing like back tucks over like a bunch of people or something.
Yep.
But yeah, it sounds a lot like Lucas. I'm sure he's probably going to follow in your footsteps. He's an incredible jumper.
He's already an incredible jumper.
Yeah, it's wild. Were you the first person who did the back tuck AS at competition, or in general?
I think at competition I was. Matthew Booty did it a long time ago. I don't know if he competed it or not, and I don't know if he was the first person. I remember as a young jumper, my very first Grand Nationals I ever competed in was for a single rope freestyle, and that was back when they just took the top 3 of every age division. And I saw Nick warming up a backflip AS in the back, like behind the the Beauty and the Beast theater. You know, 'cause that's where we used to do it at Disney back in the day. And you'd warm up outside on concrete or like a tiny little sport court. But I saw him warming up one back there, but he wasn't getting it and he didn't throw it in competition. So I would have to double check to see if Matt Booty ever competed one before me.
That is such an insane skill. I feel like once you did that in competition, it opened up the door for a bunch of other people, and now it's like a de facto back tuck skill for like top jumpers. Like the way like
now it's like level.
Yeah, it's like, you know, back tuck TJ I feel like was like the big thing, and then that just like, yeah, okay, everyone can do a back tuck TJ, but like, can you do a back tuck AS? And like, yeah, you can do that, but can you do a back tuck TS to you know, TJ like Porter does?
Oh my gosh, that's nuts. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember trying to compete a backflip AS TJ one year, a long time ago, but I never landed in competitions. So.
Did you get it outside of competition?
I had gotten it on blue floor, but I had never put it on wood floor. And then I remember I think it was like a year and a half ago now, like a year ago, I saw Porter do it, and I was like, oh, because it was one thing that I wanted to come back to, because I took it a little bit away from it. And then I just never went back to it. And I was like, why didn't I ever go back to it? And then Porter did it. And I think I'll still try to go back to it, just to have like done it, you know? But now, like, he made it look so smooth, that ASTJ, and now he did the TSTJ, and I'm just like, holy cow,
yeah,
that kid's crazy.
When you're making up new combos and stuff, and new skills, like you were talking about, you're in this ideation phase of coming up with a new skill. I would imagine that every single time you're working on something, it's not gonna work the first time. How do you know? Because I'm sure you've passed up many ideas. How do you know if a new skill you're working on is something that you want to stick with, or you're gonna move past? Like, is there a factor, or is it more just like out of feel? You can just feel something's gonna work. I'm curious if what the kind of idea is there as to how you stick with that skill.
Usually, especially if it's like a physically difficult skill to do, I never feel like I'm going to get it the first few times I try it.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Or even for like a long time. Ultimately, if it's a skill I think is cool enough, or I like enough, or something someone's never done before, I try to never give up on it. Like, I try to always circle back to it. I guess it's one of those where I've learned that, because when you're young, it's easy to try something a few times and be like, oh, I'm never going to get that.
Yeah.
Or just like not have the foresight to be like, oh, if I train enough and I put enough like cross training in and enough time into this and enough epic fails into this, eventually my body will learn. Eventually I will learn. Eventually I'll get stronger, and eventually I'll get it. That's just not something that like I think is like intuitive. We, especially nowadays, we just want instant gratification so much that like putting the time into it is really hard. And so I think that seeing past that, and like as you become an older athlete, you realize that that's ultimately what you have to do to get something. And so that's one of the things where like ultimately, if I like something enough and it's a new trick and I want to land it, I'll just come back to it, or I'll put in the time and the effort to actually train and try it every day and know that it's going to be a process. But if I put in the time, ultimately I can get there. And that's something that like, so with a moneymaker, I was very close to being the second person to do it, like years and years ago. And as I was close to it the first time around, and that was something I always wanted when I was little, and just like tried. And that was one of those things where I was like, I'm never going to get it. But then I was like, okay, no, we can do this. And so when I was close to getting it a long time ago, that was when I dislocated my elbow. And so I had a really serious injury.
Because of that skill, or something unrelated?
No. It was a toe pitch over a couple people, and I got caught on the ropes and broke a few cardinal tumbling rules. Like, so we were warming up for a Celtics game. No, Cavaliers. We were warming up for a Cavs game, and we were doing the pitch, and it was with flight crew, and we decided to switch up like some of the people doing certain parts, and I was just like, let's just do it, because I was like super confident with like pitches. And in a toe pitch, for anybody who doesn't know, is where one person grabs the other person's foot and basically throws them into a backflip. And so we would do it over things. And so this particular time, we were doing it over a 2-person or a 3-person subway. So 2 people facing perpendicular to the ropes and 1 person going under. which was kind of a routine skill for us. Like,
Yeah, I was gonna say you guys have.
we,
I've seen that a lot of
we would do.
times.
Oh, we've
Especially
done way
especially for
crazier
you.
toe
Yeah.
pitches. Yeah, we've done way crazier toe pitches, which I'm kind of a little bit like bummed because I feel like, well, especially now with COVID and people aren't able to jump in groups. But for a little while, Nick Woodard and I were talking about this at one point. We're like, big double dutches and really crazy big skills are kind of like fading out a little bit right now.
Well, I don't know.
Like,
I feel like it's less about that. It's more that just there's a certain group of guys, aka your group on Hot Dog, that was the group that was doing the majority of that.
That's fair.
You
But,
know,
I mean, we would do some of that even before I was living in Seattle. Like, we'd come together at a workshop and we'd be like, all right, let's do something crazy, you know? But I mean,
we just need a new hype squad, dude.
True. Also, I think that's part of how you got to like develop a name for yourself back in the day, was when you got invited to be a part of a big double dutch, you made it.
Yeah.
You know, that's when you were like,
Yeah.
that's what people looked forward to for staff shows and everything. And I guess now it's kind of transferred more into a social media kind of thing and a competition kind of thing. So like how well you do at competition, social media, and like what you can put out on social media, that's how people can see what you're doing with jump rope. That's how people can like be like, oh, Porter did this crazy thing today. Seth did this crazy thing. You know, Zach's throwing out this. Hamisi's doing whatever. You know, that's how people can kind of like see things now. And so I think that's kind of helped has kind of led the transition of the sport, maybe even being more towards an individual kind of, even prior to COVID, an individual kind of oriented sport, like what people are wanting to get good at, because you can film videos on your own. You can.
Yeah, but I also, I mean, I feel like part of that too is it's very, when you're talking about, I agree with what you're saying, but I feel like when it comes to not seeing as much as the big double dutch stuff, it's like, I feel like just the group dynamic, like in order to pull these things out, like if you look at the groups that have done things historically, and like best example from along Grand Central Station for the first time, right? You've got Lee and Mike and Nick and Jeff and Billy, who are at the time, I believe, some of the world leaders in jump rope, right? I feel like now, obviously COVID aside, right? Like let's go 2019, right? I feel like there's not as many like giant packed groups together. Like your hot dog group was that. Like your hot dog group when you were there was literally insane. The amount of the jumpers that were together. But you know, you've definitely got folks like, you know, like Seth and Porter are hanging out together, and they've got phenomenal teammates, right? And I think the super skippers are also and comet skippers, amazing teams. But I think that, I mean, I could be totally wrong here because I don't have the best picture of the full landscape, but I feel like there's less of that density, you know?
Yeah, that could be true for sure. But like, I mean, I think about what you said, like Proform's got like a great group, and comet skippers, super skippers, even we had a young hot dog group who was a pretty core group, and all of those groups are amazing, and they put out amazing stuff, and they'd put out some insane scales and some pretty like insane like nerve-wracking skills. But I think just those big double dutches kind of, a lot of people never developed and honestly, I guess part of it might be like, it's scary.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's stunts. Like
it's dangerous.
Like that's
it is dangerous. Like let's be honest. I've hurt myself because of toe pitches. I've dislocated arm. I've gotten concussions. I've watched people fracture heels and stuff. Like
fracturing a heel sounds really painful.
Yeah, they can be super dangerous. So like, I guess that's like, that might just be part of it too. You know,
I think that might have just been like there was more wild jumpers because like you do stunt stuff,
or
right?
less restrictions.
Now
I do, yeah. So that's what I do now.
Gotcha.
I'm stuntman out in LA. So.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different things to kind of go over, but what brought you into the stunt world? I mean, it sounds like your predisposition to try everything and anything is already going to help with that.
True. Well, I am quite the adrenaline junkie. And that's been my whole life. I've kind of just been a couple screws loose my entire life. So I actually, when I was really little, I wanted to be a stuntman. Like I was like, I want to do stunts, which is kind of a weird thing to say when you're little, I think.
I don't
Um,
know. Like, I think
but
that it sounds like from an
or
early
maybe
age.
that's a normal thing. Maybe everybody's like, yeah,
I mean, it
being
sounds
a
like you
stunt
had a
double
lot
would
of
be
energy.
awesome.
For someone to have a lot of energy, it sounds like throwing their body and flipping all over the place is a great.
True.
Did you watch Damien Walters when you were younger?
Oh,
Yeah.
are you kidding
Yep.
me? Yeah,
Knew it.
of course I did. Yeah, yeah. No.
There's the reason
Um,
why.
true, true. But even before that, like even before YouTube or like any of
Mhm.
that, like, but so when I was little, before YouTube and stuff, and I don't think I'm old by any means. It sounds weird to say that, but like even then, I wanted to be a stunt double, you know. And I just remember watching movies and like my parents kind of telling me like, oh, you can jump off stuff and be in a movie. I was like, what? Because I also thought like being an actor would be really cool. I was like, but like if I can do crazy stuff and like be in a movie, that'd be cool. And so I was like,
So how many times have you been Tom Cruise? That's what we're wanting to know.
how many times
How many
what?
times have you been Tom Cruise? We were wanting to know that.
Dude, nobody's Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise is only Tom Cruise. No, I'm just kidding.
Perfect answer.
No, but yeah. So I guess just when I was little, I've always been an adrenaline junkie, and then kind of always done well with like in the face of fear. Like I think a lot of people are like, "Oh, you're fearless." I'm like, "No, not at all. Not by any means." Like trying something new terrifies me. It's just like some people are better at handling that. And the reason people are better at that is because they've done it more. So the more you can confront those fears and kind of face them and then learn how to deal with them and work past them, that's like how you can like push yourself to do things. I'm not going to say to be a better jumper, to be a better whatever, because that's neither here nor there, but that's how you can push yourself to do and try things that maybe you wouldn't have been able to do or try before.
This point is really important, and like I feel this a lot because I've been able to do a back tuck for a very long time. Like it's been at least 7 years I've been able to do a back tuck, and every single time I go to do it, I am still scared to do a back tuck, and it's been one of the biggest mental hurdles I've ever dealt with. And it literally, it's funny you mentioned the repetition piece. Like even though I've literally done back tucks hundreds of times, if I don't do it for several months or for even a week, if I don't do it enough for a week, I'll go back to it and be intimidated. But then it takes me like a solid 50 reps before I actually feel comfortable enough to do it. And it's like, it's one of those things that's like, it's some of the most frustrating things for me because I'm like, my body can do this. I know I'll be fine. I know that there's not danger with my ability to do this. Just go do it. And then I'll be in the middle of a back tuck and then I'll like freak out. And it's like, dude, chill out.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you have to like develop a trust between your body and your brain, you know? And so like you have to teach your brain that it can trust your body and you can teach your body to trust your brain, and that can be really hard. Um I think for I guess for the human condition. No,
Yeah.
no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
But I mean, sometimes just, like trusting ourselves is the hardest thing. You know, having confidence in ourselves is the hardest thing. So having confidence in yourself to do something that is potentially life threatening, or maybe not life threatening, but could be very dangerous. Like even on like a backflip, if you bail, you could seriously hurt yourself. Um, so kind of like developing that kind of self awareness and self confidence, that helps a lot. And that's one of the things like when people say like, how are you not scared? I'm like, what do you mean? How am I not scared? Of course I'm scared. Like I get just as nervous. And especially with toe pitches. When I was little, I purposely let Trevor Norris do all the toe pitches because I was terrified of them. I was like, no, you do them. I'll do all the other flips. But for some reason, I think it's because I fell when I was young. An injury is an easy way to like fall into like a path of never doing them. So I hurt myself on a toe pitch. And then I kind of stepped away from them. And then I came back and I got really good at them to the point where I trusted myself and got confident. And then I hurt myself again and I dislocated that elbow. And then it took a little while to come back from. I mean, and because at that point I was the one doing most of the toe pitches in whether it was competition or shows or whatever. And it took a while to come back from. But you can do it. And it's one of those things where like it's not about, I guess it's overcoming the fear. You know, it's not succumbing to the fear. And as an adrenaline junkie, the adrenaline comes from fear, so it's kind of like that rush of overcoming. I think, because like I think more of being an adrenaline junkie, at least for me, is not so much like a oh, I have a death wish. By no means do I have a death wish. It's more being able to face fear and do something that scares you, and having overcome that, there's a sense of pride.
It's the accomplishment.
Afterwards.
Yep.
You know, it's the accomplishment. There's something, you were able to do this thing that before you didn't think you could do, or that you were nervous to do, and you were able to like get past that hurdle, that mental and physical hurdle a lot of times. So
I feel like that
um,
applies to like everything in jump rope too, because like I'll tell people all the time, like no matter what, jump rope's interesting because there's always something for you to be proud. If you've done a single under, there's always something for you to be proud of, and there's always something to work
always.
towards.
Always. Also, there's always something in jump rope to be proud of too, because like with performances, some people have huge stage fright. Um, like so, even going out and doing your first performance, doing a trick in front of a group of people for a trick circle or a show and tell, like sometimes that can be more scary for people than doing like a crazy dangerous stunt. And so, jump rope kind of allows you a lot of opportunities to grow as a person, um, and kind of build on your skill set, or I guess kind of brush off some rust or iron out some of the things you struggle with. So
Mm-hmm. No,
it's a lovely sport.
That's so true. Let's kind of move in the direction. I was going to ask you about epic fails, but obviously we've covered that.
Oh, we have not even begun to cover.
Okay,
No,
let's go. Let's do a couple more of those. Because
gosh,
as someone who's throwing down some of the most wild skills, I think it's worth pointing out that not all of these skills worked out that well.
yeah, and maybe looking back, and as we're about to have this conversation, maybe it's a good thing people aren't trying to get skills anymore. No, I'm just kidding. So I have had, I think, and not all of these came from jump rope, but I think I've had 4 or 5 concussions. So I'm like at my limit. Like I'm like the doctor's like, okay, no more for you.
That's a lot.
So yeah, I mean the worst one I had was skiing though. So not, like I said, not all of them came from jump rope. But I broke my hand jumping rope, and like I had 2 spiral fractures going down, and it was like the bone was out of place. So I had to have surgery on
Dude.
that. Yeah, it was gnarly. I broke my foot.
Wait, what
at
was
one
the
point.
hand thing from? What did you do to?
It was a belch. It was a belch.
Ooh, really? What kind
It's
of?
always the easy things, man. It's always the easy things. So I had just done.
belch is easy, relatively easy depending on who you're talking to, but yeah.
Okay,
But
sure.
was this like was it just a standard belch?
So single rope belch. Yeah. So I went from a frog to a push up and pulled the rope around on my way down in a single rope, or
It wasn't
in a show.
backwards. It wasn't across. It was.
Nope.
Oh,
No, it was
okay.
just that.
That's unfortunate.
And my rope just caught on my feet, and I couldn't get my hand underneath me all the way, so I kind of landed on my hand sideways and just broke it. And that was the first bone I ever broke, and so I didn't know it was broken. So I kind of kept jumping on it and doing the rest of the workshop. And then I was like, this thing hurts a lot. So I got back to Seattle and I went to the doctor, and he was like, he did the thing where they're like, on a scale from 1 to 10, how much does it hurt? And I was like, okay, well, if we're talking about it right now, in my head, I'm like, okay, well, I can't say 10. That's like for like pregnancy and broken femurs. And I was like, and I can't say 9. That's for like, I've heard kidney stones are really bad. And maybe that's a 10 actually. Like, I don't know. So maybe 9 is like, I don't know. I don't think I broke it. So maybe 9's like broken bones. Like maybe 9 and 8 are like broken bones. And
You
I
just
was like,
like
hey.
reverse engineering
And I was
the
like,
whole
in like
thing.
a 7. Yeah. And I was like, well, a 7's probably, I guess, because it hurt a lot when I did it, and it doesn't hurt that much now. So that was probably like a 7 when I did it. So now I'd say like it's feeling a little bit better. So it's probably like a 5. So I told him like a 5, I think. I think I said like a 4 or 5. And he's like, oh, it's probably not broken. He's like, but you know what? We'll do like an x-ray just in
And
case.
he's like, nope, that's broken.
So he came back with the x-ray and he goes, he goes, so you broke your bone. You have a spiral fracture in 2 places, and the bone's like rotated out of position. And he's like, so you need surgery. I was like, what? So I went from not being broken to needing like screws, like, and potentially plates. I ended up only having to get
You're
screws.
like, damn it, I answered the quiz wrong.
Yeah, I was like, okay, so I guess 5 wasn't the right answer. So, and then so I broke my foot, and then I've had like a couple small fracture, like heel stuff, but those are pretty jumpable through. Just like stress fractures and stuff. They hurt like crazy, and you can't really walk on them, but I was able to compete through a couple of those. And then I have torn partial tears torn my meniscus and a partial tear in an ACL and MCL, which was just for me. Most of them have come, and of course the elbow dislocation. Most of them have come from unusual things and like easy or relatively easy skills. So I broke the hand on a belch. I broke my foot doing a traveler. Me and like one of the
Hold
people.
on, hold on a
Yeah.
second. You broke your foot doing Traveler?
So it was a group routine. I was in Germany. It was a group routine, and I had made up like a scoop sequence in one of the group routines. And the person I was jumping with at the time we were demonstrating the group routine in maybe one of us was off beat with the music. So I went to adjust as I was trying to plant to travel to them. And as I was moving, I just rolled my foot inward. And apparently I rolled it hard enough to break it. And that was one of those where at that time, the only bone I had broken was my hand. So I thought this wasn't a break at all. So I, again, jumped on it for the next week. And I think that where it was broken allowed me to do this. Like, obviously, if you break a bone in certain areas, you're not able to push through it, nor should you. But I was able to jump for the rest of the week. And it kind of got to the point where as long as I took a long time to warm up in the couple weeks afterwards, it would be bearable to jump on. So I'd kind of do a couple shows like that. And then eventually I was just back home in Colorado and I was still like limping on it. Like I couldn't run, favoring it a lot. My mom just made a doctor's appointment for me and I went in and I was like, it was right before one of my, I think it was
1 to
my
10,
first
what's your
trip to
answer? I don't know.
Yeah, that. Oh my gosh. So I got that again, and I was like, dude, I'm not good at this. I just tell doctors that I'm like, I'm not good at the 1 to 10 thing. Like I think my pain tolerance is all sorts of off. Like I'm not good at it. Don't ask me that. I was like, maybe I should tell you a 9, but it feels like a 6. I don't know. so
That's funny.
so I'm like, okay, because like for me, like the most pain I had was like that dislocated elbow, and I'm like, that was to the point where like I was like about to pass out, but I'm still like, but technically you could feel more pain than that. So it's still not a 10, right? So anyways,
Dude, you're
so,
like go hard or go home, except for when it comes to the pain. Like if you're doing a traveler, you better go hard and you might break an ankle. When it comes to actually feeling the pain, no, we're not doing that.
but it doesn't count. No, but anyways, so the broken foot, I ended up going to the doctor, and they came back, and they said it's broken. And I said, "Are you sure?" Which, of course, is the stupidest thing you could say to a doctor, holding an X-ray of your broken foot. But I was just so convinced that like I felt like it was starting to heal, and like I could warm up past it, and I had like kind of like created this.
You just damaged some nerves. You're just not feeling anything anymore.
I'm just not feeling anything anymore. I don't know.
No, that's funny.
I think it's also one of those things. Like I read a thing one time that like athletes have very high pain tolerances, and I think it's just part of like because you train. Like training hurts, so like the more you train, the more you condition your body to deal with like that kind of stuff or like push through that kind of pain. So like whether it's the pain of like a workout or the pain of like a broken bone, you learn to deal with it easier. So.
No, for sure. Well,
but anyways,
they're
plenty of injuries. Yeah, plenty of injuries. Also, I've been in the sport for like 21 years. So, I mean, some people can be in the sport for that long and not have any injuries, but sometimes
not the way you jump.
Territory, not the way I jump. That's right.
Yeah, that's kind of funny though, because I definitely would have expected those injuries to come more from the insane skills. So that was kind of
me too.
Yeah.
And there's been like sometimes insane skills take more of a toll on your body slowly.
Right.
But
that makes
sense.
And
I think part of it is when you're doing an insane skill, you're so heightened in that moment. You are running on all cylinders. Your focus is at 110%. So it's when you kind of get too comfortable with doing a big skill, or you get too comfortable with doing any skill, and you kind of let up on that focus is when things kind of go wrong, so to say. And that's for sure.
I want to kind of move into a different subject here real quick, because you hosted a virtual competition a little while ago.
Yeah.
And I kind of want to get your thoughts on new competition leagues, new ways to host competitions. What's on your mind in terms of competitions?
I mean, right now that's the big question, right? Especially with COVID and everything. I've always loved the idea of having new competitions and new types of competitions and just more opportunities for jumpers to compete. Because we as athletes have had the opportunity, or growing up, we compete like on a national level once a year. And even on a regional level, like it's changing a little bit now, luckily. But when I was growing up, you'd compete 2 times a year, maybe 3 times a year. You compete at your local USA jump rope regionals, then AAU regionals, and then nationals. And maybe if it's a FISAC year, you'd go there, or maybe you do AAU Junior Olympics. But chances are you wouldn't do more than one of those. And sometimes there would be years where you would. But basically, still, you're jumping all year round, and you only get like 5 opportunities maximum to show off what you're doing and what you can do. So that's kind of I've always thought there should be more opportunities, and I always thought it would be cool to have kind of a more audience oriented, or not just audience oriented, but something that really pulls in the
Spectator
audience.
sport.
Yeah, spectator sport, exactly. Because that's going to be the best way to grow our sport, in my opinion, the best way to grow our sport, period. I mean, the more people you have watching, the more people you have engaged, the more people you have trying your sport, or the more you develop kind of a culture of wanting to join this sport, and the more opportunities you have for somebody to find success in that sport, which is not ultimately, a lot of the reason people join sports is because they want to when you're a kid and you want to be an NFL player, or you want to be a professional volleyball player, or whatever it might be, you're doing that because there's some type of importance placed on it at a young age. Whether you saw this person on TV and you're like, I want to do that, or your family's been like I don't know, Broncos fans your whole life, or whatever it might be, like there's some type of importance placed on that. And I mean, we love to dream, and the bigger your sport has of an achievable dream, or even if it's not really achievable, but if you can dream big, I think that really encourages people to join your sport. And for a while, dreaming big in jump rope, I'm not saying you couldn't dream big, but dreaming big meant doing things that haven't been done before. So when I was little, there weren't professional jump ropers. There wasn't anybody who was getting paid to jump rope. There was barely people who were making on TV. I mean, you'd have like news stations and stuff, and yes, I didn't know at the time, but there were probably some people doing it professionally at the time. Like probably Peter Nestler was starting to do stuff, or Renee Bebo, or Buddy Lee, or whatever. But at the time, those types of jumpers weren't attached to the competitive, and even the jumpers we have now are usually come from the competitive, or the professional jumpers we have now come from the competitive world. So, like, I mean, those doing Cirque du Soleil, those doing Cirque Dreams, those performing NBA halftimes, flight crew, like whoever it might be, a lot of those jumpers came from the competitive world. But still, there's no professional competitive opportunity. So there's no jumper who's making a living off of competing. There's no jumper who's getting, even a lot of our jumpers who have these insane followings on Instagram now, they didn't get that type of following from being a professional athlete. They got that type of following from being an Instagram influencer and using their competitive talent to their advantage. But
yeah, seeing what's trending and then adapting
Exactly.
jump rope to fit trending, which then leads to
Exactly.
following. Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. But like, for instance, I mean, LeBron James, let's use him as an example. He didn't take basketball and then try to get a fall. He's LeBron James because he's the best basketball player, right now. And so, I mean, it would be nice. I've always thought it would be amazing to have a version of competition where athletes can get paid, athletes can get recognition, in our sport and outside of our sport, and all of that through competition. So that's kind of where, and I've kind of been wanting to do a competition like that for a while, but I just haven't had the bandwidth to really put one together. And I wanted it to be in person, but I was like, you know what, we can still do this virtually. And so that's kind of where the Live to Jump tournament came from. I was like, you know what, let's try something and see if it catches any traction, And so that's what it was. I just threw together 5 brand new events, 5 events that I thought would be, 1, fun for athletes, 2, could show off and showcase athletes, in a way that we haven't before with competition events. Um, and then just like 3 would be really, really easy to watch. It would be exciting to watch. It'd be a relatively quick event compared to jump rope competitions. It would be something that would encourage athletes of all ages or experience level to go pick up a rope, because right now, um, say you stumble across jump rope on ESPN, and you're someone who's never seen jump rope before. Let's say you're a 10-year-old and you see jump rope for the first time, and what you see is a single rope freestyle, and you see this athlete. It's like a all day event. This athlete goes out and does these super cool skills, and they're judged by this panel, and you're like, oh, that was amazing. Did they win? Are they going to win? Oh, I have to wait. Well, now not as long, but I have to wait at least till this event's over, which could be in a not grand situation, a couple hours to find out who the winner is, or a day to find out who the winner is. Also, how did they win? Oh, there's a whole rule set I have to understand. Oh, there's judges. Oh, it's a whole minute. You're not going to have 2 10-year-olds be like, watch a jump rope tournament right now and be like, let's go have our own little mini tournament out in the driveway. Let's go choreograph routines, write routines, blah, blah, blah. You have that with football. You have that with basketball. You have kids watching a basketball game, and then right after the basketball game, going out and shooting hoops, going out and playing one-on-one, because the concept is very, I mean, yes, there's a lot of rules in basketball. You have NBA officials being paid a lot of money, 6 figures, just to know this a year, just to know the sport and know all those rules and be able to like recognize those. But you can break it down to such a simple idea and concept that 2 kids can go out and have a one-on-one and enjoy themselves and have fun and come out with a winner at the end of that. Same with like pig, same with horse, where you shoot, and at the end of a 30-minute fun pickup game of basketball, you have a winner, and you know why that person was the winner. And the same goes for watching that on TV. If I watch a basketball game knowing nothing about basketball, I could choose a side, root for them, and get some sort of emotional satisfaction or some sort of emotional reaction by either having my team win or lose, and I know why they won or lost. And right now with a jump rope competition, I don't believe that a random spectator can do that. So part of what I was doing is I was trying to figure out events that, 1, would be exciting to watch, 2, are easy to understand, at least the basic concept, and 3, have a winner, whether it be determined by the audience, which would be even better because then you're just engaging your spectators even more, or just it's obvious who won consecutive quads. It's obvious who was the fastest. So that kind of thing, it's so much easier for the audience to be engaged, and then even after, to encourage people to pick up our sport. So to encourage, 2 athletes could do any one of the 5 events I did in this event. One of them was add-on, the basic trampoline game where I do a skill and then you have to do that skill and do another one. And then I have to do those 2 skills and another one, and then blah, blah, blah until somebody can't do the sequence. That's easy. Kids will go pick up. I can't tell you how many times I played that. That was an international, I knew friends from different parts of the country and world who knew that same trampoline game growing up, right? I don't know. It's not a professional sport. I don't know how it got around, but it's fun. You want to go do that with your friends. You know who wins at the end. There's certain gratitude you get from it. It's easy to understand. So that's one of them. There's a best trick thing. Vote for who does the best trick. Which trick was harder? Who cares? Which trick were you more entertained by? Boom. Whoever got the most votes, they win. So that's kind of where it was. And then also I always thought it would have been really cool to have been able to walk away from a competition with some monetary prize. So that's the other thing about it, is I made sure that each one of those, and hopefully this grows as we go, but right now it's just a purse of $50 for each event they won. But that's a way for athletes to be able to walk away with something more. And I mean, money's not everything, but as we get older in the sport, we have to pay bills, So if you're a collegiate athlete or post-college, and we get to the point where you can walk away from a tournament having won a couple grand, and you can pay for rent for the next month, and we have tournaments every weekend or every other weekend around the country or even more than that, and you can walk away with that and you can walk away with sponsorships, then we're going to have athletes staying in the sport for longer. Then we're going to have kids who are 5, 6, 7 dreaming about being a competitive jump roper, who have never touched a jump rope. That's different. I mean, usually if you want to be a professional jump roper, it's because you picked up a rope and you're like, oh, I love this sport. Oh, I want to compete, blah, blah, blah. And then you're like, oh, I want to be a professional jump roper. But now we can have people who have never touched a rope being like, oh, it'd be cool to be a professional jump roper or a professional competitive jump roper, because the clout that comes with it, because I could be sponsored someday, because I could make money and pay for it and have this kind of like celebrity status, you know. I'm not saying that's the most important thing in life, but people value it.
Well, and there's a lot of, it helps in a lot of different ways. And I feel like this has been such a big, I feel like it's been a very big conversation or topic brewing in the jump rope world for a long time. And like I started talking about this kind of stuff with Mike Fry 3-4 years ago. We were chit-chatting about similar ideas. And I'm sure that this has existed much before then as well. And it's like, it's really cool to see things happening now, like action and movement being taken, because I agree with you on that. The second we start to get professional athletes, that really changes a lot of the perception of things, you know? So yeah, man, this has been such a good conversation. Like we've really covered a lot of good stuff. We had a couple of tech difficulties at the beginning, but it's fine. We pushed through them. But yeah, it's been really good. I think now would be a good time to kind of work towards wrapping up and ask you the big main question of the show, which is what is jump rope to you?
Oh my gosh. It's just jump rope. No, I'm just kidding. No, it's
the first person to have the fastest answer ever. It's just jump rope.
Yeah, no, it's just a sport. Whatever. I just do it sometimes. No, I'm just kidding.
Break a few bones, whatever.
Yeah. No, I mean, for me, it's like been so much. You know, it's a lifestyle, so to say. It's been a sport. It's been a passion. It's been a job. It's been a career. It's been how I paid my bills. It's been how I've seen the world. It's been how I've made my friends. It's been how it's a lot of who I am. It's a lot of who I've become. I have seen the world and experienced cultures that I would never in 1,000 years have gotten to do without jump rope. I am the athlete I am because of jump rope. I have gotten opportunities because of jump rope. So, I mean, really, like, in a sense, like, without jump rope, I would be a completely different person living a completely different life. So, I mean, I'm not saying jump rope is who I am, but jump
low
rope
key.
It has molded a lot of who I am, and continues to mold a lot of who I am. So
yeah, nice. That was the perfect way to kind of cap off this whole discussion. And I'm sure we could keep going for hours and days.
I feel like we barely touched on and I'm just kidding. We touched on so much,
no.
But there's so much more stuff. Like even
no, we'll definitely have to do a round 2 at some point, because there's plenty more we can get into. But
right, and even thoughts that weren't finished. I know so many times but I love that. You know, that's fun.
Yeah, that's the kind of the whole idea. You know, so
I love it. Yeah.
Nice, man.
But cool. Thanks for having me on, Nate. This was a good time. So.
Yeah, dude, for sure. I'll definitely have you on again. We'll figure out a time at some point to do a round 2.
Sounds good.
Yeah, dude, thanks for being here. Thanks for sharing all the knowledge bombs, and hope you have a good rest of your day.
Yeah, you too.
Hey, real quick before you leave, hold on a second. It would really, really be helpful to me and to the sport of jump rope at large. I know, big goal, right? It'd be really helpful if you sent this podcast to somebody else. And I know that whatever, Nate, stop annoying me. I already listened to the podcast. I'm good. No, but listen, if you send it to somebody, I'm getting crazy here. If you send this to somebody, it really does help get the word out about jump rope. It helps people get this information. It helps people learn all of the things that you just heard. So I would really, really appreciate it if you could send this to somebody. All right, that is it. That's my little hyper and rant. I hope you have a great rest of your day, night, lunch, dinner, wherever you are. in the world. All right. See ya.